Greetings, campers, and welcome to today's session of the latest in our TELUS webinar series. Today, Artificial Intelligence, Boon or Bane? My name is Scott Walker. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Artists Network. My pleasure to be your host today and to welcome artists from right across Canada. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we live, work, travel, and create on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land, now called Canada, since time immemorial. We acknowledge this as part of our covenant with all Indigenous peoples to share, respect, and protect the land in the spirit of peace and friendship, and to honor the future generations of all our nations. So in getting ready for today's session, I decided to go online and troll for some jokes about artificial intelligence. And I actually came up with some jokes created by artificial intelligence, and I thought I would share a couple of the better ones with you. What do Alexander the Great and Winnie the Pooh have in common? They both have the same middle name, the. Here's another one you may not care for. Why do seagulls fly across the sea? Because if they flew across the bay, they'd be bagels. You can see that AI tends to go towards puns more than anything else. And if that's the quality of humor that AI can come up with, I feel better already. But today we're going to examine artificial intelligence, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or unfunny in this case. I'm sure questions will occur to you during our presentation. I encourage you to put them in the chat box and to put a question mark at the beginning of the question so I can grab them from the other chat that goes on. Let's get started. I'd like to introduce our presenter today. He is a strategy, marketing, communications, digital, and AI expert with 30 plus years of executive experience. Please welcome Lorne Solway. Lorne?
Hey, thanks, Scott. Thanks so much for having me. And that was a great opening. I really appreciate those jokes. Anyway,
you did, really? Oh, okay.
Very well done. It set the tone perfectly, so thank you. And
My pleasure.
Colleagues, I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the Canadian Artists Network for having me. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. And as Scott had mentioned, I am a 30 plus year marketer working on creative design, marketing, business strategy for a variety of brands, including McDonald's Restaurants Canada, Bell Mobility, HBC, which has been in the news a lot, unfortunately, lately, as well as the Air Miles Reward Program. And now I have my own boutique consulting company, as Scott rightfully had said. I focus more on artificial intelligence, CRM, marketing technology, as well as creative and design. So it's absolutely great to meet everybody. Okay, well, thanks everybody. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties. So I'm really excited to share with you just some thinking around the impact of artificial intelligence, not only on artists, it's across a number of key verticals. And I've given similar speeches to other key verticals, including quick service restaurants. I've done it for supply chain and logistics, as well as a number of tech companies. And so what I'd like to talk about today are the different opportunities, challenges, and what it means in terms of the future of creativity, because artificial intelligence is here to stay. Next slide. So as an introduction, and this isn't surprising to any of you, AI is absolutely unequivocally transformational across many, many industries, many of which I just mentioned, including the arts. And just overall, you know, when you think of artificial intelligence, there are many, many challenges, and there's many, many opportunities as well. And the tools itself around artificial intelligence continue to become more and more evolved and powerful, creating both challenges and opportunities. And so what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about the pros, the cons around artificial intelligence. What are some of the implications that we need to really think about, particularly as it relates to the arts? And then what are some recommendations on how we can embrace this and actually work in a world of AI moving forward? And then finally, I put together a list of tools, different collaborative AI tools, and I've divided them into either general, music, there's different categories. And I put them together. It's not super comprehensive, but there's about 19 different tools that I thought I would leave with you. I'll go through each one of them at a very high level. I've worked with some of them, but not all of them. And I would encourage you on your own to go through some of them because they really can help some of the work that you're presently doing. Next slide. So the rise of artificial intelligence in art. And so it's really, really interesting. So a lot of the tools today can generate very high quality images, like high resolution images, simply from text prompts. And the opportunity there is to really be very binary and finite in the type of requests that you're asking when you're looking for quality images. But there are tools, and I'll talk about these later, like DALL-E, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion that do a really good job in this area. And then additionally, artificial intelligence, and it's so widespread right now, it's used for digital paintings, it's used in video editing, music compositions, as well as literature. And a lot of these models can analyze not only the artistic styles, but they can also create new works based on existing art. And that in itself is an opportunity, but it also presents many challenges. Next slide. And so what I try to do is to think about the 5 top pros that I think are in place for artists as you start to think about a world with artificial intelligence. And so the first one is really around assisting in things like brainstorming and ideation, really enhancing creativity. I think there is a real good opportunity to embrace AI as a collaborative tool and to expand your creative network. At least it'll allow some sound bites and some thinking that you can build on as artists. The second one, which is really interesting, and this transcends all verticals, all industries, is really around how AI really helps automate a lot of the repetitive tasks that all of us go through in each of our daily lives. So really increasing efficiency and speed. And in this particular area, it would be things like design, color correction, and rendering. Those are things that can be automated through AI, and you can still maintain the creative integrity of what you're doing. The third one is accessibility. Now, this is a double-edged sword. So AI starts to democratize the process around creative expression, which means that folks that aren't terribly artistic and creative, like myself, can now rather easily leverage some of these tools to try to do their best in terms of creating some form of design and art. That's on the positive side. The opportunity side is that this can really start to, deviate and or take from some of the great artistic talent that potentially could be out there. And so, because machines can't do anywhere near what humans can do in terms of building design or building what we would classify as real art. And so, I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later today. The fourth one is really around new artistic possibilities. So, and AI really enables generative art. And by generative art, I mean like algorithms or code-generated art, which you can create interactive installations and really new forms of multimedia storytelling. And ultimately, our artistic expression is really all about storytelling. And then finally, on the pro side, I think there's a lot of ways that AI can be integrated into workflows, creating more collaborative opportunities. And so rising tides float all boats, and it just creates more thinking around creative expression to ultimately come out with a better end product. So let's take a look at the cons now on the next slide. So there are many, and it's a very controversial topic for sure, in terms of areas that are probably most present in the media, or when you think about AI, pretty well across all verticals, is really this notion of everybody worrying about losing their job. And so, the reality is AI-generated art, it may reduce demand for human artists, but we'll talk about how we can provide an antidote for that. So job displacement is probably the first one. The second one, again, well documented. There's a lot of copyright and ethic issues right now. And I think the legal teams are still trying to work out a framework. I always call it freedom within a framework. How do you stay on the right side of copyright and ethics issues? And a lot of the AI models to date are trained on existing art, which really raises concerns about intellectual property and who really owns the art. And all that needs to be defined. It's a very gray area today, but I do know, and both of my my brothers are lawyers, one of them specifically in this area, I do know that they're trying to provide more clarity around copyright and ethics issues. So there's more of a framework for us all to be able to navigate. The third one, which is concerning potentially, would be the devaluation of art and the threat about some art being commoditized. Because if we make it really easy, even though machines are doing this to do art creation, potentially it could lower the perceived value of how art is actually properly crafted and really around human-made art. And that's just natural tendencies when the population at large maybe isn't fully educated in this area. They may think, because it's democratized now, that potentially it could lower the perceived value. The fourth one, which I think is a really big one and a positive in a lot of ways for us as artists moving forward, is this notion of this lack of human emotion. So again, well documented, these are bots. So it really lacks the personal expression and experience, the emotion and depth that all of you go through when you truly produce art. And so a machine can never, ever replicate that. And then finally, really about market saturation. And so if you democratize this notion of art and the public isn't as well educated, then AR-generated art flooding the market could really make it harder for artists to stand out. But I also think it creates an opportunity where if a lot of the art that's being produced through AI is a little bit more mechanical and less emotive, it really does allow artists to develop their own unique selling proposition, really putting the human element into all of their work. Next slide. And so when you think of the pros and cons, what are the implications for artists overall? And there's lots of them. I just tried to boil it down to the top 5 that I thought were most impactful. So the first one is this notion of an artist really creating their own unique selling proposition, their own USP, their own brand. And so you can't replicate human creativity. It's pretty well impossible. And so I think it does provide an opportunity for the artistic community to really creatively differentiate themselves from the more mechanical use of AI that's out there today. The second one is that artists do need to become remote or very intimately familiar with copyright and fair use issues around the art that is produced, especially where AI is involved. And as I mentioned before, this is very elastic right now. A lot of the frameworks are being talked about, discussed, and articulated as we speak because AI continues to evolve. So it's really important that you stay front and center of all the copyright issues. The third one is really around monetization challenges. So when you start to democratize this and make it a little bit easier, it could mean that selling art becomes more competitive, especially with AI-generated alternatives out in the marketplace and the public not maybe understanding that as well. So it goes back to really educating the public and developing a unique selling proposition and making sure that we enunciate the human element of what artists do. The fourth one is really around artists being familiar with all the different tools that are out there and embrace those tools rather than resist them. And that's really about education and skill adaptation. And so AI, and I'll talk about some of those tools, can really become a really good partner in a lot of the work that you're doing when you're thinking about creative concepts and designing those creative concepts and bringing them to market. So rather than run away from them, really educating yourself and embracing them is a huge opportunity. And that's the same across all verticals. We can't run from AI. That's the new world. And then finally, there could be a cultural impact. So AI potentially and will start to reshape the more traditional artistic values and the definition of what true art really is. But again, I think that's a big opportunity here as well. Next slide. And so when you take all of that, what are some recommendations that we can take forward as artists, given that the landscape is going to be dotted with artificial intelligence and it will continue to evolve? Well, the first one, as I said before, it's really about embracing AI as a tool. Use it as a partnership to enhance the great work you're doing, not to replace the creativity, but to help either to make it more efficient, more effective, more redundant tasks that are more mundane. AI can help speed up the process while you still maintain the integrity of the creative process. The second one is really around, again, developing your own unique value proposition or USP, like a unique artistic style. AI can imitate, but this whole notion of original storytelling and having the human element embedded in that storytelling through our artistic expression is never going to be replicated by AI. The third one is dive in, learn AI technologies. I try to read and I scrape through different digital resources every day because it's continually changing and there's new opportunities that come up every day. But really embrace it and think of it around how can this be a competitive advantage for me based on the work that I do, because it's going to happen anyway. Fourth one is really this notion of emotion-driven art and personal storytelling is going to remain in high demand. I think that's where there's a key differentiation opportunity. So really focusing on the human element or the human experience will protect the impact of AI around you. Fifth, really being proponents, and this is a great forum to advocate the ethical use of AI, helping to be vocal around what those ethical guidelines should look like, and then helping craft them, and this whole notion of freedom within a framework, allowing some liberties around the crafting of that framework, but be advocate and be a very heavy voice for artists in the industry around how can we ethically use AI, because it's going to happen anyway. How do we create a border or a framework around how it's used? Number 6, the notion of really exploring AI-human collaboration. So integrating AI into workflows as you're producing the work that you produce. Again, rather than avoiding it, think about how it can help make it more efficient, more effective, and take away some of the more mundane duplicative tasks that you have. And then finally, this whole notion of staying updated on copyright issues and developments to make sure that we as artists are protected continually, especially as some of the AI continues to evolve. Next slide. So some things we need to keep our eye on because, as I said at the start, artificial intelligence, it's a very controversial topic, and there are some concerns around it for sure. And that's why this whole notion of mainly to propagate proper ethical standards on how it's used. So the first one that we all have to be very concerned about is obviously this notion of copyright infringement. Ultimately, who owns the work? Because a lot of times what will happen is AI, through the algorithms, will scrape different versions of the work and then try to build on it. And so plagiarism and copyright infringement just have to stay close to that in terms of how some of these legal guidelines and copyright issues are being addressed through legal frameworks moving forward. The second one, again, is there's a lot of deep fakes or misleading content that's out there right now. We've seen it through social media, even through elections, when you talk about content. Well, art isn't protected as well. So there could be unethical use of AI art where people are claiming that they're the original users of that content or art. And so it's something that we do have to keep our eye on and be vocal about for sure. It has to do with guidelines and ethics. On the third one, when you're using AI and some of the collaborative tools, there are biases in some of the AI models because they're only trained on the content that's presented through web and through the internet. And so not all those things, as everybody knows, are fact-based. And so there definitely are biases in some AI models. So there's nothing like the human element to ensure that what we produce is authenticated and on point. The fourth one is really about, as I mentioned before, legal systems are still trying to figure out how to manage this notion of AI-generated copyright ownership. And so there'll be lots written on that and lots of thinking happening as AI continues to evolve. And then the final one is, because it is so easy and so democratized right now, is that as artists, we need to make sure that we're not depending too heavily on AI, because it is very efficient and very effective. But the notion of creating the human element and emotion and adding artistic integrity will protect art as more of a science rather than having it be commoditized through AI. Next slide. So the future of AI in art. So what does that all mean? Well, as we all know, it's changing. It's changing as we each night as we wake up in the morning. It'll continue to evolve and continue to shape new artistic trends and direction. And we just need to stay plugged into all of that. And what's really important, I think, for all of us is this notion of continually thinking about how to innovate and leverage some of these AI collaborative tools. Rising tides float all boats. And so there's a good opportunity to leverage those tools, add the human element, and continue to innovate so we protect the integrity of non-machine created art. Ethical and legal discussions, as I mentioned before, will continue to evolve, and they're absolutely unequivocally going to play a key role. Again, a legal framework needs to be put in place around copyright infringement and royalties and who owns the art ultimately, and so much will be shaped over the next number of years. And then finally, AI really needs to serve as an assistant, not a replacement to the great work that each of you do. So creativity remains a deeply human trait. It's never going to be replicated, and certainly by AI. Next slide. And so what I wanted to take you through today, and again, this isn't a super comprehensive list, but I've identified approximately 19 different tools. I'll give a brief description of what those tools are, as well as a few use cases on how I see them being used today, so that you'll have a list of collaborative tools that I would encourage you, check them out if you're not familiar with them, and see how they can actually help increase your efficiency and effectiveness while still maintaining the integrity of what you're doing. But I wanted to outline them so at least you have a list to go back on. So I'll go through each of those now on the next slide. So the first of the 19 I've sort of labeled under the general category. There's a number of them. So the first one is DALL-E. I haven't used this one directly, but essentially it really creates AI-powered images from text prompts. And some of the use cases on where this is used, it's used a lot in concept design, illustration, storyboarding, as well as digital and art creation. The second one under the more general category is Midjourney. And again, it's an image generation model. It tends to be a little bit more artistic in its use and more surreal in its output. So it's closer to, a little bit closer to the human element. And there's a number of use cases on how Midjourney has been used, from looking at more futuristic designs, fantasy type art, AI-assisted creativity, as well as creating character concept art, if you will. The third one is Stable Diffusion. And again, this is a AI tool that really generates, like the other two, very high quality images from text. And it allows users to fine tune models. Again, I haven't used Stable Diffusion, but I know a few folks that have. Different use cases for Stable Diffusion would include photorealistic rendering, more experimental type digital art, as well as AI-assisted illustrations when you're doing illustrations. And then finally, Adobe Firefly, which I have used, and it's embedded in Adobe Creative Cloud. So you can create images and do enhancements using Adobe Firefly, used for things like AI-enhanced image editing, graphic design, as well as creative asset generation. Next slide. So then I looked for a couple under more of the visual arts, and I came up with two examples. So the first one is Runway ML, and this is really a tool that really helps artists generate, modify, and animate different types of visuals, and it's a very powerful tool. And it's used for things like video effects, visual experiments, as well as AI-generated animations. The second one, which I have used, is called Deep Dream Generator, and it's a Google product. And essentially, it modifies images using what's described as neural networks. So use cases for this would include things like AI-assisted photography editing, psychedelic and surrealistic artwork as well. Next slide. And then I found 4 tools that are used more for music and audio artists. And I've used many of these actually, or worked with many of these. So the first one is artificial intelligence visual artists. And so this is really used for music composition. So you can generate your own original soundtracks, which is kind of cool. And it's been used for things like AI-assisted music creation, for films, and also in a lot of video games. Some of the music you'll see behind some of the video games that many of you probably have some experience in. The second one is called Amper Music. And again, it's a music composition platform. You can make original tracks using it. And again, similar to artificial intelligence visual art, it actually is used for background music and videos, AI-assisted musical production, and background in some advertising spots as well. The third one is another Google product called Magenta. And again, it really helps musicians and artists create new sounds and compositions. Some of the use cases for Magenta, and I haven't used Magenta, are for music improvisation, AI-generated melodies, as well as experimental sound design. And then the fourth one, which I have used, is Boomy. And so it's really used to generate songs, and you can do it, as it says, rather quickly, with not a whole lot of experience on the music side. And you can use it for content, experimental sound production, as well as for independent musician scores, effectively. Next slide. And then there's a few tools, 3 of them for either storytelling or writers, which are quite great. So one that you are probably familiar with, which I use a lot, is ChatGPT. Again, used for a variety of things, but in this context, it's more around storytelling, content writing, brainstorming ideas, putting together high-level, even art-type strategy documents is very effective from that standpoint. And some of the use cases would be, for script writing, poetry, different storytelling, literature, content, anything that would really require some type of writing assistance from a creativity standpoint. The second one is called Jasper AI, and this is really used similarly for either blog content, marketing copy, storytelling, sometimes for editorial content as well. I've used it for. And so use cases would include if you're writing a book, you're looking at crafting a narrative or a story wrapped around a concept or a campaign, and just generally for content creation. The third one, which I haven't used, is called Sudowrite. And again, what I researched was an AI-driven tool for fiction writers. It helps with idea generation, any rewrites that you want to do, taking storytelling that you may have crafted and then improving the narrative and building around the narrative. And again, it's been used for novel writing, character development, and creative brainstorming. Next slide. And then the final set of tools are really for video and animation. And so there's a few here that you may be familiar with. So the first one is Synthesia. And so it's a video creation tool, and you can create avatars, voiceovers. It's actually pretty cool, and used for explainer videos, which I have used it for in the past, video presentations, or just general storytelling. Very effective. Second one called Deep Motion, which I referenced earlier. And again, it can turn 2D videos into 3D animation. I've never used it, but I've heard very good things about it. And generally, the use cases for Deep Motion are around game development, animation, and development of artificial intelligence-generated characters as well to create motion. And then the final one is Pika Labs, which again, I have not used this one. It's an AI-driven video creation tool and turns text into motion graphics. Again, use cases would include just marketing videos, could be brand videos, new product launch videos, service videos, AI-generated animations, and then storytelling enhancements. So that's the list of the 19 tools. Oh, sorry, I forgot the last slide, which are for 3D and game artists. So NVIDIA Canvas, again, it's a digital painting tool. It can take sketches and really develop them into more realistic or lifelike images. Some of the use cases on where NVIDIA Canvas has been used are things like digital painting, game asset type creation, and then environment concept art. Second one here is called Scenario GG. I haven't used this one. Again, AI-assisted tool for game asset creation. So developers can generate textures and character designs using Scenario GG. And use cases would include 3D modeling, things like different types of game development, all sorts of digital asset creation. Apparently, it's pretty robust. And then the final one is Promethean AI. And again, it generates sort of these virtual environments or these 3D type environments that you would typically see in things like video game development and architecture. Next slide. And so I hope I gave you a relatively comprehensive overview of the pros and the cons and the implications on AI. I tried to give you a pretty good snapshot of just shy of 20 different tools that if you're not familiar with them, you may want to go online and activate them. A lot of them have free instances, which are pretty cool. And so overall, as we talked about at the outset, AI is here to stay. And I think it's important that we all embrace it. It has its opportunities and challenges for sure, but I think it's trying to figure out how it can work together in some of the workflows that you're doing to really enhance and or make the work that you're doing more efficient and effective. It is revolutionizing the creative industry as we speak, automating a lot of repetitive tasks, adding tools that I think help the creative process in a lot of ways. Again, it doesn't have the human element to it, but I do think it can at least provide a foundation to be able to build on. And so I think it's really important. There's the right way of embracing AI while still maintaining creative integrity and then benefiting from all the different tools and technological advancements that will continue to evolve over the next number of years. And the key to this whole thing is balance. You want to maintain your artistic identity, but you also want to leverage the collaborative tools that are out there to help increase speed, efficiency, and effectiveness, again, while maintaining your artistic integrity. And then finally, the whole notion of integrating AI into workflows, you can still remain competitive while still maintaining the integrity of your artistic vision and the human element and the emotive element that comes into all the great work that artists do day in and day out. And so on that note, I'll hand it back to Scott or open it up for questions.
Thank you, Lorne. Whoa, lots to think about there. And surprise, surprise, we do have some questions. I can actually answer the first one. Will Lorne's presentation be emailed? Yes, it will be made available to everybody. So worry not on that score. Let's get to some of the questions that are really for you, Lorne. Is there any distinction for artistic IP between Fair Use US and Fair Dealing Canada with respect to AI, if you can answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be completely candid, I don't know the answer to that on the differences between the two. I can certainly, as I mentioned, one of my siblings is a lawyer in the space, and so I can check with him and send a note to you, Scott, and get back to your team on that. Certainly.
In fact, Lorne, you and I should maybe talk, and you can introduce me to your brother, because maybe we could have a second session on the legal aspects of AI.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Definitely.
Let's put a pin in that idea, and we'll talk about it later.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay. I don't know what DALL-E still has a waiting list to join them, and it's a very Caucasian-based, even with BIPOC prompts. That's more of a quote or a comment than a question, but it's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've used it, and I found it pretty good when I used it in the past. Now, I haven't gone anything super complex, but like a lot of the tools, a lot of them have their pros and their cons and the deficiencies. And so I would encourage folks just to play around with it a little bit more and see if you can find out how to either liberate some of the opportunities in DALL-E.
Okay, to have these generators work in a less clunky way, is it essential to buy rather than use the free open source version?
Yeah, again, another great question. And so it depends on the tool. Some of them by design are very, very clunky, especially the free versions, and they give you enough to fish you in a little bit. There's no question. I think if you go through the free version and you really think at a high level, it can add value either in your workflow or enhance the design process, I would use the paid version because there's always more integrity in it. Your data is better protected, and the tools I find are much more refined in the paid version than the free versions.
What a surprise.
Yeah, shock.
Thanks, Lauren. Okay, here's a question. I mean, this could be a whole separate topic, but in 25 words or less, can you explain what a neural network is?
Oh, that's a hard one, actually. And
Yeah, I
so,
know.
yeah, I probably could send you a written prose around it, but it does have to do with a lot of programming elements for different algorithms and how the neural networks are corrected. And a lot of you have probably read a lot about crypto. A lot of crypto is built around a lot of neural networks. I could probably send you a more simplified definition rather than try to technically explain it, if that's okay. So I can forward that by email to the team overall.
Great. Okay. Um, oh, yeah. Here's a good question, too. Does using AI mean increasing the size of your free disk space? I'm running low.
Yes, although you can do most of it in the cloud. But yeah, AI, there's no question it does leverage a lot of data. But again, if it's a lot of these tools are cloud based, and so you shouldn't have to worry too much about using up too much space. Sometimes you need RAM, obviously, on the memory side, but again, almost all of them are cloud-based today. No different than when you're using Google or CRM products and stuff like that.
Um, this may be a question for your brother again, but when you display your art online, can you prompt Google to not scan your art to use for AI version elements?
Ooh, that is a great question. Um, I really don't know the answer to that, but I will ask him. As we talked about earlier, I mean, a lot of this area is pretty gray right now. Not dissimilar from what music went through when it started to get digitized, and so um, I really don't know the answer to that. I don't even know if it's been fully defined. I would think just intuitively that if you are very direct with Google and you lay out the groundworks, they would have to honor it, I would think. But
Sure.
yeah, that's as much as I know. But I will ask my brother that question as well. It's a good question.
Okay, great. Um, how would AI help me in interpreting and engraving music for publishing? It still needs a person to figure out the music. I can answer part of that, but
Okay, I'll let you go first, Scott.
well, all I was going to say is there are apps. There's one called Dorico, which is really good for setting up music for publishing, for printing, and that sort of thing. You don't necessarily need AI for that. Um, but there probably are AI applications as well, if you know of any, Lauren.
Oh, absolutely. And you'll see in the list of tools there's a couple. I've used two of them. When I've produced videos for clients and I needed to put a score, a music score behind the videos. And they're quite easy to use. I'm not well versed and artistic on the music side by any stretch of the imagination, but they give you enough templates that you can actually leverage and then create almost a bespoke customized score with more genericized templates. So I would highly encourage in the list, when you send out the presentation, Scott, there's a couple in there that I have used on the music side. If you go in and play with them, you'll see it's actually very easy to create your own score.
Okay, I think that's it, Lauren. I don't see any other questions. Um, whoa, except we just got one that's about a page and a half long. Um,
Okay.
okay, I'm going to have to have a quick scan on this.
Yeah, no worries.
What about the huge demand this technology places on our power grid as AI consumes a lot of power? I won't go on, but it's uh, a very good question.
It does consume a lot of power. It's a
Yeah,
very fair comment, and I think that's one of the areas, notwithstanding copyright and infringement issues and taking jobs away from humans and the human element. There's no question as you start to get into more advanced computing and more advanced algorithms, it does tax the system for sure. But I think what will happen, like anything else, is the technology not only for AI will evolve, but some of the chips and how AI is delivered will evolve as well. So it'll become more efficient and effective. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now. And I think the world's going to look very, very different even 6 months from now. That's how fast it's moving. But it's a fair point. Remember when the first time mobile phones came out, you had those big phones that were sucking up energy from everything, and they had batteries that didn't last. Or Tesla, it's the same thing. That's exactly what this whole AI generation is going through right now, where it's evolving as we speak. And I think the products and the tools will look very different even 3 to 6 months from now.
Okay. Well, I think that will do it for now. We had a question about where can I access these tools. They'll be in the mail out that I will send you. That is basically what you saw with Lauren's presentation. So, Lauren, I think we're done. And
so I just want to say to you, Scott, and the
Yeah.
community, thank you for having me. I apologize profusely for technical issues. I have to replace my Mac, but thank you very much, and I really appreciated the opportunity to share my thinking with you.
Our pleasure, and thank you for sharing your expertise. And I think it's just highly appropriate that today would be a technical issue
Absolutely.
when,
Absolutely.
when we're talking about tech. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you again, Lauren Solway. Thank you to our series sponsor, TELUS, and mostly thanks to you for being here today. We'll be posting a video of this webinar in our website probably early next week, and I'll send out a notice along with the slides when it's available so you can have another look at it. And just a reminder that all of our webinars, public relations, art and neuroscience, preserving the mind, copyright, social media, artistic legacy, preparation, identity theft, fraud prevention, are all available on our website at canartnet.ca. And I also encourage you to join the conversation the next time we have an online salon. Our next one will be coming up on May the 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And we'll probably be digging deeper into AI on that day, along with some of the other topics we've been talking about. So in the meantime, until we meet again, please take care and have a creative day.